I believe Wanderstop is quite possibly one of the best games ever made. Now, I will caveat that by saying that your preference for video games is going to be highly subjective. Right? Everybody plays games for different reasons. But what I will say is that if you really truly throw yourself into Wanderstop and put all expectations aside, I believe that it can be one of the most profound experiences that you will have from probably any medium, whether that be games, movies, or books. Now, that might sound like a bold claim to make, so let me explain why. It almost feels like it's less of a game in the traditional sense of the word and more of an experience. I mean, sure, it has some elements to it that are very much like a game. I mean, if you were to look up what Wanderstop is, it would be called a cozy game, which might be compared to the likes of Stardew Valley or Animal Crossing. But I think to put it in any of those camps really isn't doing the game justice. If you've ever played any games before by one of the developers of this project, which was actually a team of people called Ivy Road, which is a small studio created by Davey Wredens. And Davey has been behind some of my favorite indie games of all time, like the Stanley Parable and the Beginner's Guide. And the reason I loved these games so much, and the reason I love Davey so much, is because he seems to have this ability to almost really get to this deep-rooted emotional place within you. The way he tells stories in the games make it feel like you're being taken on this journey. They're almost more explorations of the human condition and philosophy than they are actual games. But what they do by playing them is, I think they almost hold up a mirror to the player. It's an opportunity for self-reflection, for pause, and to kind of question how we're all living our own lives and the behaviors that we all have. And it's so difficult for other mediums to do that, right? Whether you're reading a book or watching a YouTube video or watching a movie, you might see some good points that are being made. But I think in the process of playing a game, because you are so committed and you are taking on this role or this persona, it's very difficult not to embody that character. I mean, that's the kind of nature of a game, right? Is you are playing as this character, you are becoming this character, you are being given a sense of agency. And I think that's the magic in games and what allows a game like Wanderstop to hit on such a profound level. I recently wrote down my thoughts after playing Wanderstop, and I'm reluctant to call this a review because it's more of a just reflection from my time with the game. Just a note here is toward the end does contain some minor spoilers. So if you do intend on playing the game, I would highly encourage you to go in blind and set all expectations aside. But with that said, let's get into it. It's hard to describe an experience like Wanderstop. Some people would call it a game, but to me, it's been so much more than that. It's a reflective journey. It's a mirror held up to the complexities of existence. I've never even considered writing an essay before. Not even school could manage that. But Wanderstop moved me so profoundly that I felt compelled to share my experience with as many people as I could. In some ways, this game feels like exactly what the world needs right now: healing. My fear is that some experiences just can't be articulated in words, and Wanderstop is likely one of them. If you own a PC or console, I would highly encourage you to stop watching this, stop reading this, and play it for yourself. If not, I'll do my best to share this incredible journey with you. We play as a young woman named Alta, a legendary fighter facing burnout who's forced into a life of managing a small tea shop in a forest. And despite this peaceful, idyllic setting and the seemingly calming nature of her tasks, making tea and growing tea and harvesting tea, she's deeply unhappy and has no desire to be there. She feels it's all a pointless waste of time and desperately wants to go back to her life of meaning and striving, being a warrior. The core gameplay involves the gentle routine tasks of running the shop, serving customers, growing and harvesting ingredients for tea, and then brewing them using this crazy tactile contraption. Each customer you serve has a different preference or request. Some know exactly what tea they want, and others, they just want to maybe feel a certain way. Maybe they're feeling a little bit down. Maybe they want to feel nostalgic, and it's up to you to find the right ingredients for the job. Wanderstop isn't your typical game, though. None of the customers are in a rush. There's no timers. There's no deadlines. It doesn't bombard you with objectives or a race to the finish line. In fact, there aren't really any objectives at all. And this is part of the magic behind Wanderstop. The game gently pokes fun at our tendency to both overcomplicate and also to over-intellectualize life. In a way, it draws on parallels between video games and our lives. We're all running from one objective to the next, constantly chasing the next mission or achievement or the next thing on our to-do list. Yet without a specific objective or a clear goal in life, we begin to panic. As within the game, you begin to feel like you're wasting time, right? In Wanderstop, there's no quest, no objective markers, or any indication of how, when, or even if the game is actually ever going to end. Right. So at several points, I found myself saying, is there any point to all of this? Am I just wasting time? Where is this all going? And it's in these moments when the parallels to life become incredibly apparent. The lack of clear objectives is a jarring but deliberate pattern interrupt that forces you to reflect on life. In essence, the game is about doing dull, monotonous tasks sprinkled with occasional moments of fun. Yet the main character clearly doesn't want to be there. And this feels incredibly relatable at times. I mean, how often do we feel like we have better things to be doing in our own lives, or that we should be somewhere else at this point in our life, or that feeling of agitation that things aren't happening fast enough, or things aren't going the way we want them to go? The game asks, what happens when we sit with this discomfort? It's an invitation to look at yourself honestly. The game holds up a mirror to the player whilst you're going through it. And the owner of the tea shop, Borro, he's this big, friendly giant. He's always chuckling to himself and filled with this childlike wonder and just acceptance of everything that happens. He's like the best friend we all wish we had, the kind of friend who makes you feel relaxed and accepted no matter what happens. Regardless of what goes wrong or how bad it seems, Borro just seems to laugh it off with a sense of both curiosity and awe. The game indicates he's been around for a very long time, but he acts as if he knows nothing about anything. Even when teaching us about the tea shop, he quickly acknowledges that it might all change tomorrow and he might actually be wrong anyway. The funny thing is, there's a real wisdom to his ignorance that's hard to ignore. Through Borro's perspective, we see the world with fresh eyes and get to question our own perspectives and beliefs. When playing the game, you'll often find yourself getting caught up in definitions or searching for hidden meanings in the mundane moments. You're always questioning whether you're missing something bigger. But in those moments, you end up missing the very thing that's happening right in front of you. How many times does this happen to us in our own lives? There's a part in the game where a customer comments on how they could feel the energy of the universe within a cup of tea we just served them. So naturally, Alta pours herself one, only for her to find herself over-analyzing its bitter taste, wondering what exactly she should be looking for and what they tasted that she didn't. It was during this scene that I realized I was doing, and I had been doing exactly the same thing whilst playing the game, by looking for the meanings or the hidden clues within the plot or the dialogue. And on reflection, it made me think that what makes something truly magical isn't knowing how it works or even why it works. The magic comes from the mystery, or simply being in a state of unquestioning and unthinking presence. Not having to know, why is this happening? What is this leading to? What am I going to achieve by doing this thing? It's when we are so absorbed in a moment that all meaning, everything else just fades away. That's where the real magic lies. And it's such a kind of profound realization that you have in this game of there are these feelings while playing that you get. And it's just an appreciation for the stillness, because the game forces you into that in a way that life often can't. You know, when we're sitting by ourselves with ourselves, there's always, you know, and maybe this is just me, but there's always that feeling of guilt that we should be doing something and, oh, you know, we need to do this and we need to fix this thing or call this person or, you know, do that thing, like whatever it is. There's a million and one obligations we all have. And it's almost like somebody sitting you down and saying, stop, shut the fuck up and stop and just be. And it's just this amazing experience that it sounds crazy. It's like, why do you have to play a game to have that experience? But I think if anything, it just shows how the worlds we live in, you know, the conditioning that we're exposed to, the society that we live in and that we're brought up in, that's just the way of the world. And sometimes it does take these kind of experiences to snap us out of that, even momentarily, so we can have that glimpse of what really makes things special. And in fact, our own perpetual search for meaning is often what prevents us from experiencing the very thing that we're actually looking for meaning within, right? That's the crazy thing about all of this. So why do we try so damn hard to figure things out all the time? Another element of Wanderstop that makes it truly unique is its manipulation of time and space, whilst also giving the player a sense of agency in the game. Being a narrative-driven game, you get to choose how conversations unfold with customers or characters that you encounter. And this leads to some heartbreaking, profound, and often hilarious conversations that just really stick with you. They really take you on the full emotional spectrum. One guy that I met, Gerald, literally wouldn't stop talking about his son. His biggest goal in life was for his son to find him super cool. But unsurprisingly, his son was more embarrassed than impressed by his attempts. And each of the characters you meet are incredibly unique, yet they also feel relatable at the same time. Some are super frustrating, some are downright strange, and others just feel like a good friend you've known for years. And this is the amazing thing about it, is every character you meet, you will be able to relate that to somebody that you probably know in your own life, whether it be a friend, an acquaintance, a colleague, a family member, whatever it is. And there's just this really kind of familiar feeling you get while meeting all these characters. And some of them are even, I believe, written in a way where it's designed to represent different parts of ourselves, right? Different parts of our psyche, the confident side, the insecure side, the fun side, like all of these different parts of us. It's almost like looking at a mirror, and you kind of get to observe that as you're playing through the game. And you're like, I guess I can be a little bit like that sometimes. Actually, one of the things I would say if you are thinking about playing Wanderstop is to really play the game with a mindset of reflection, right? Playing it whilst being in that open-minded state, not looking for anything in particular, but just seeing what comes up whilst you're playing it. There's even a part in the game where you kind of semi-adopt a child and you get to influence her growth. And she's like a rebellious child whose parents have seemingly just abandoned her. And when she finds out Alta was a fighter, to her like the badass sister she never had. And there's something terrifying about having so much influence on someone's perspective and view of the world when we don't even know if our own view is the right one, right? I'd imagine this is something that most parents will experience. There's a hilarious part later in the game where there was a bunch of men in suits that come swarming down on the tea shop, all asking for directions to the quote unquote boardroom. And in fact, they're so intent on finding the boardroom, they barely notice this seemingly extraterrestrial being that turns up called Zenith. It's this fascinating character full of both wisdom and just perpetual awe of this new place that they've arrived in. And kudos to the writers of the game here, because the dialogue with Zenith honestly feels like you're actually speaking to some sort of divine being. Every time you speak to them, you feel like you're actually beginning to discover some of the secrets of the universe. But for some bizarre and also kind of hilarious reason, Zenith seems absolutely fascinated and obsessed with these men in suits looking for the boardroom. And as time progresses, Zenith begins to change and becomes more and more like the men in suits. You see, at one point, they're wearing like a tie, and eventually Zenith actually becomes fully one of these men in suits and is just obsessed with the boardroom. Now, I might be reaching here, but it feels to me like the writers of the game are probably trying to make a point with Zenith. Let that sink in for a second. Anyway, as time goes on, some customers will leave you with pictures to commemorate your time together, which you can, only if you want to, hang up around the shop. And to begin with, I actually didn't bother with this, but as I played the game further, I discovered there's a part of the game where seasons change and time actually moves on, which seems to kind of indicate that it's a time or alter the character we play as needs to let go of something, or maybe to kind of shed a part of herself. But you have no idea when this will happen. So characters that you met and had gotten to know and like suddenly just stop talking. Like they literally turn mute when you try to speak to them. And there's actually a real genuine sadness in these moments, because it feels like someone you had just gotten to know has just left you, right? And it's time to kind of leave them behind. And it's really sad because it's fun. Like when you see them around the tea shop and you just like randomly speak to them, or they come running up to you with this realization they've just had, or something they thought about their tea. It's this kind of nice, comforting feeling, you know, how we probably feel about some of the friends we have. And for any of you watching this who, you know, I'm sure we've all been through experiences where maybe we've lost certain friends or family members, or lost contact with certain people in our lives. And there is that sadness, you know, where it's like that person's just no longer there, whether it be somebody has passed away, whether it be somebody you're just no longer in contact with. There's a real kind of sadness in that moment, and a hollowness that is left by the lack of that person's presence. And this is a core thread of the game. It's coming to terms with change. These pictures that you hang up around the shop, which I eventually started to do, just act as subtle reminders and memories of days gone, right? Fond memories of interactions that you had with certain people, much like the objects, trinkets, songs, or photos that we have in our own lives that contain memories, that contain feelings, moments, and emotions. Now, this is about to get into real spoiler territory here, so if you do plan on playing the game, you might want to stop the video at this point. But there is a point toward the end of the game, a really profound yet gut-wrenching moment, when Borro tells you it's the last time, like your last time, you know, you're going to be in the shop together. He doesn't really specify exactly what he means by last time, but suddenly after that conversation, you begin to look at everything differently. You know, just as I was beginning to get impatient with the game again, and the lack of progression, and asking like, oh, how long is this going to take? Like, is it actually going to end? And you start kind of rushing through the game, just doing chores, and like, okay, like, where's this going? Come on. And again, we do the same thing with our lives, right? We do the same thing where we just rush through it. It's like, oh, I just need to get this out of the way. And, you know, you almost go onto autopilot. But then in a moment, just like that, just from Borro saying, hey, I got a feeling this is the last time. And it, like, even now, like, thinking about that, it actually makes me quite emotional to think, imagine if someone told you this is the last time you're going to be on this earth. This is the last day that you're going to have on this earth. The way you look at everything changes. The seemingly annoying things, the insignificant things completely change. Your relationship with people, with objects, with anything, just with life in general, completely changes. The rush to the end, like, just disappears, and it's replaced by this slow, deliberate appreciation of everything around you. And this is one of the things that I just loved about this game, and it really does such an amazing job at conveying this. And even at the end, there's no rush, and you're invited to take all the time you need and stay as long as you like. But just knowing that this is the last time, it highlights the ephemeral and precious nature of life and our experiences, and really allows you to fully soak it all in. And I thought to myself, if only we could have this moment with our own lives. But then again, maybe every day is that moment. And maybe the game and Wanderstop is just one of those reminders of that, right? That every moment can be that, and there's so many points when you're playing it that you go into autopilot and you're trying to get to the end. But for what? For what? Like, why are we trying to get to the end? Why are we trying so hard to get to a certain point? Not just being in the moment. And there's so few things in life that I think can give you that experience. And it's just even the nature of a game. When you think about the nature of a game, it's linear. And our lives, they have a defined endpoint. And I think it's the way that a video game like this is a micronized version of life. You get to experience a life or a journey over a shorter time frame than you would otherwise get to do. And from that comes some real realizations about our own lives. There's something about sitting down to play a game like this that engages a different part of our brain. It forces you to let go, and in doing so, it feels as though the weight of the world is just lifted from your shoulders. I've never experienced so much bliss in such mundane tasks, but why? I heard a quote recently that was something along the lines of boredom is unappreciated serenity. And maybe the only things blocking us from the serenity and the bliss that we all crave is our unwillingness to be bored. Writing about Wanderstop has been a real struggle. Some things transcend words, and the magic of Wanderstop, I believe, lies in the prolonged exposure, the connections you build, the choices you make, and the self-inquiry that unfolds along the way just from playing the game, from being forced into these experiences that on the surface might seem frustrating or boring, or might lead you to question why you're doing it and feeling like it's a wasted time, because it's actually a mirror to how we're all living our own lives. So I guess in some ways, Wanderstop isn't really a game, but more of an opportunity to step outside of yourself and observe your own thought patterns, behaviors, and actions through a new perspective. As the credits rolled on the game, I was literally in tears. They were both tears of absolute joy and appreciation for what I just experienced, but also a sadness that it was all over. Why did it hit me so profoundly? Was it simply that I was forced to take a break from life? Or was there something deeper in the game and something that can't be explained? That night, I lay in bed wondering what it all meant. Was the tea shop and the characters you meet all supposed to be a part of Alta's psyche, or maybe parts of herself that she was having to both come to terms with and simultaneously let go of? What was the significance of serving people tea and having these conversations with customers? Was the game trying to suggest that our own healing comes from being in service to others, maybe? Was Borro supposed to represent God or some sort of divine wisdom? Or maybe to ask any of these questions about a game like Wanderstop is missing the point of the game entirely.